Hello, friends. Today we are going to be summarizing literary text. Let's look at our learning target. Summarizing helps you to identify the most important events, details, and themes in a story or play. So let's highlight some things here. Summarizing, that's our job, is going to help us to what? Identify Identify the most important events, details, and theme in a story or play. So we know about theme because that's what we worked on last week. Theme is I can figure out the theme of a text by using details from the text. So we know that part. Let's go to read. When you summarize a literary text, you briefly retell stories and details and events in your own words. A good summary includes only important details. It tells about main characters, settings, important events, and the theme of a story. We're going to read the story below, and we're going to think about which details are most important and which details would you include if you were telling a friend about the story. The title of this selection is A Jacket in the Boot. Here we go. My friend James moved here from England a year ago. One rainy day, his mother dropped him off at my house. He trudged in the door and took off his boots. Later, when we decided to go to the park, James couldn't find his rain jacket. Then he said, "Uh-oh, I think I left it in the boot." I looked at him puzzled. Then I shrugged and picked up one of his boots to see if his jacket was stuffed inside it. James burst out laughing. "Put that down, Dan," he said. "In England, we call the trunk of a car a boot. That's where I left my jacket." This is how I learned that two people can speak the same language and still not understand each other. But mistakes are an important part of learning. Now I know that some of the words are used differently in England, and James is teaching me even more. All right, so what are we going to be looking at? We're going to read back through this one more time, and then we're going to get started with our graphic organizer. My friend James moved over here from England a year ago. One rainy day, his mother dropped him off at my house. He trudged in the door and took off his boots. Later, when we decided to go to the park, James couldn't find his rain jacket. Then he said, "Uh-oh, I think I left it in the boot." I looked at him puzzled. Then I shrugged and picked up one of his boots to see if his jacket was stuffed inside it. James busted out laughing. "Put that down, Dan," he said. "In England, we call the trunk of a car a boot. That's where I left my jacket." This is how I learned that two people can speak the same language and still not understand each other. But mistakes are an important part of learning. I know that some words are used differently in England, and James is teaching me even more. A jacket in the boot. All right. Here we go. Think. To summarize the story, think about which details are important and which details are not. List important details in the chart below. Then use them to write a summary that includes the story's theme. So even though we are looking at summarizing, theme plays a major role in summarizing. So first of all, they want to know who are the characters. And we have a character named Dan. It's an American boy. And then we have James, an English boy. They're asking about the setting. Where do you think this story took place? I think it took place in Dan's house. We're going to put our little think bubble up. Here we go. Alrighty. Dan's house. I'm not going to put it here, but that's just where the setting is. Now, who tells the story? Who do you think is telling the story? Dan, James, or someone else? If you chose Dan, then you are correct. Awesome. Now we want to know what are the important events that happen in the story. So remember that when we are summarizing, that does not mean we're going to rewrite the whole story from beginning to end. Now's the time that we are going to summarize from beginning to end using just a few sentences. The first important event that I can spot is James cannot find his jacket and says, what does he say? And says he thinks he left it in the boot. So is that something that happened at the very beginning of the story? Right. That's correct, because when we are summarizing, we start from the beginning and then we go to the end, just using key details. Next, what happens? Dan looks for James' jacket in the what? In the boot. Very good. So after he looks in the boot for the jacket, what happens next? Because Dan is looking inside the boot, then James laughs, right? And says that in England they call the car trunk the boot. Wow, we've learned something new today. And at the very end, we understand that Dan learns that some English words are used differently. Some English words are used differently in where? In England. Yes. How are we doing so far? Now we are at the theme. Ooh, still coming right back to the theme. The theme is trying to figure out the story details, and we're going to summarize and capture the main ideas, and that's going to give us a theme. So I'm going to say for the theme, thinking about the story that we just shared, I would say good lessons can be learned from mistakes. All right. So how do we feel about this? I think we did a pretty good job. And we will come back to this later. Down, when we scroll down some more, we will see that they are now asking us about the summary. They want to ask us about the summary. So we just filled out this part as a class. Now the summary portion is what you're going to be doing on your own. And I want us to make sure that we look at our academic talk. These are the words that we should use when we're talking about summarizing. So number 1 is summarize. Number 2 is character. Number 3, the event. Number 4, the theme. And number 5, the setting. So your job now is to make a summary of the text using the information that I have provided for you. Happy summarizing!